If you're like me, you've probably watched the Trump assassination attempt too many times. Today we're going to look at was the fact that he didn't die a miracle, divine intervention, or just pure luck? First, let's take a look at an animation of the actual event.
Important structures or buildings we need to understand. This is the Trump stage, and just above him is the audience section where a selected number of people is seated. This structure is also very important as it is where the Secret Service personnel are located and snipers are positioned. Finally, we have this building where the shooter set up his sniper location. A quick note, the distance from the shooter Thomas Crook, the Trump stage, is around 137 meters, which translates to around 450 feet. While the distance between the shooter and the Secret Service sniper position is around 134 meters, which is approximately 440 feet. When former President Donald Trump was a little into his speech, the shooter squeezed the trigger of his AR-15 rifle, releasing 3 bullets. One of these shots hit the former president on the ear. This was followed by another 5 shots. Possibly one of the bullets missed the former president's head by just a quarter of an inch as he turned to look at a chart statistic located on the left. This move saved his life. From the top angle, this is what it looks like when replaying how the bullet missed Mr. Trump as he moved his head at the last millisecond. Interestingly, this bullet would have hit the former president if his head had been turned towards the audience as shown here in this visualization.
So what really happened? Was it a miracle, divine intervention, or luck? And first we're going to look at miracle. Now, a miracle is typically defined as an extraordinary and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore attributed to a divine agency. Many of Trump's supporters have referred to this as a miracle or divine intervention, and many saying that it's a direct intervention by God to preserve his life because he has a greater purpose. All right, let's have a look at what the Bible would describe as a miracle. Look at Exodus 14:21-22. We see that Moses here, he parts the Red Sea, allows the Israelites to escape from the Egyptians. And so we can see that God obviously does something supernatural in that it's something that we don't see. It's not an everyday occurrence that the Israelites happen to be there at that particular time. So that we could consider a miracle, parting the Red Sea, something like that. Okay, some debate that and say that a wind could have come, whatever. We would generally consider something like that out of ordinary and a miracle. We can see in one of Jesus' miracles where he turned water into wine in John 2:1-11. Okay, so that usually takes years. Obviously, it's a natural process that can happen with grapes turning into wine, but water itself without obviously the grapes and without time, it's obviously something that doesn't happen, so we would consider that a miracle. And Jesus raising people from the dead like Jairus' daughter, Mark 21-43. Obviously, we don't see people raised from the dead every day. That would be considered a miracle. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at is divine intervention. Okay, so this will be considered a direct involvement of God in the world, often seen in subtle, everyday occurrences. We could see in Genesis 50:20, Joseph tells his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." So Joseph was sold in slavery, put in prison, all these things, and so God raised up this boy to basically become the second in command over all the world, so he could save his family and save basically the world at that time. So it was natural events, but it was God's time. We could see another instance in Esther 4:14 where Esther rises to become queen, and then she also saved her people that were going to be killed at that particular time. So natural events, but happening in a particular time. Now we're going to move on to whether it's luck. So luck is often described as the success or failure brought about by chance rather than through one's own actions. So unlike divine intervention or miracles, luck is usually seen as a random, uncontrollable force. So in secular terms, non-religious terms, it's frequently mentioned in the context of chance events, like winning the lottery or surviving an accident or encountering unexpected opportunities that arise. So they're often seen as random occurrences without any divine influence. The religious perspectives on luck could be there's a cosmic order. For example, in Christianity, events perceived as luck might be viewed as part of God's divine plan, even though they're not directly miraculous or be seen as intervention. Okay, so when we look at this event, Trump's assassination attempt, was it a miracle? Definitely not, because there was no upending the laws of nature. There wasn't a fire that destroyed the bullet or anything like that. Nothing like that at all. So it definitely was not a miracle. Or was it divine intervention? Maybe. Was it luck? Maybe. So looking at these two things, it's really going to depend on your perspective. There was confluences of things happening that day, that, particular wind, that he happened to turn his head at that particular time, and all those things. From myself being a Christian, my perspective is that, wow, yes, obviously it's a small target, although Trump's got a big head. It just seems that, that there was some sort of divine intervention that he didn't get killed, because we're so close to him being killed, and all these other factors going on is kind of crazy. But I can definitely see from a person who's not a Christian, who is not a religious person at all, they could just see it as, he was lucky not to get killed because, obviously it's just natural events, and he just happened to turn his head. It's just pure luck. We're not going to be able to say, it's one or the other. Obviously, again, it depends on your perspective. My perspective is, I would say that, it seems like, there's definitely some sort of spiritual involvement here. But many are going to disagree. So thank you for looking at this, and you'll like and subscribe, and we'll get some more great content to you.